A warm welcome to you and a warm welcome to Ashwin Balaji, a very enterprising astrologer on board, and he has been for quite some time trying to see the similarities and to get both of them on a board between the Eastern and the Western cycles, way of doing things, astrology. Ashwin, a warm welcome to you.
Thank
By the
you.
way, he is an IT professional by profession, and because he comes from a lineage
Finance professional.
from by professional astrologers, so this is something he's extremely passionate about. So before we move on, Ashwin, what made you take up the science of your ancestors?
Uh, I think it's a very difficult question which does not have one answer, because I think it's the DNA thing which pulled me towards astrology. I think I just found out recently that my maternal ancestry of doing astrology goes back at least as far as 200 to 250 years back in time, somewhere in 17th or 18th century. So I think it's more of a DNA thing. Everyone in my maternal family kind of has some kind of relationship with astrology or the any form of Vedic science. So it's not surprising. But what is surprising is my attachment not just to Vedic astrology but also the
Western form of
yeah,
astrology.
the
But
Persian
all
and medieval.
roads lead to the same room, don't they?
Sure. Yeah, that's what I am kind of stressing upon. But I see various arguments and kind of things going on. Yeah, but that's not the way how astrology was done before 2000 years, because Babylonians and Greeks had cross-pollinated, and then there was cross-pollination between Indians and Greeks as well. So Indians and Persians as well. There was a lot of cross-pollination, especially during the Mughal Empire, and that is the rise of Tajika system of astrology in India. So the ancient world was far more connected than we imagine. It is only today that we have started, trying to,
Dividing it into
yeah,
barriers, creating
yeah,
barriers. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Okay. So what are you going to teach us today, Ashwin?
So I've been trying to do primary directions for quite some time now. Primary directions is one of the most important astrological techniques in the Hellenistic tradition of astrology, and it has been used by astrologers before 2000 years, which is astrologers like Vedic Valens and Dorotheus of Sidon. So all these astrologers from the
Well,
Hellenistic
they have
tradition.
also been used by Indian astrologers when you do Tithi Pravesh, when you do, Surya Sankraman again, or you do Muntha. All these things have been done even by Indians, not just.
Yeah, Tithi Pravesha and as you said, this Munda is also uh, is done by. In fact, Munda is very close to annual profections in Hellenistic tradition, which is part of Tajika. But primary directions is something different. I'm not sure if it is done in Indian astrology, because it takes the diurnal motion of the planets.
Okay.
Uh, a diurnal motion of the planets, like we have planet rising, culminating at 12 noon, and
Yeah.
then setting, and then going below the horizon. So the planetary, the zodiacs shift in terms of the diurnal motion
Yeah. So
is what is
as
being
per
taken
night.
upon.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but I'm not sure if it is used in Indian tradition. But primary directions has a long history, and it has been used until 17th or 18th century, even in William Lilly's period. But later on, I think some astrologers, and it has evolved over a period of time. And I think the idea of primary directions has given rise to another new concept called secondary progressions. I'm not sure if secondary progressions. I don't know the actual origins of secondary progressions, but I think it became really famous, or it was at least started sometime in 18th century, and then it is one of the major. I don't know if I would call it timing technique, but yeah, it's probably a
It's
timing
a
technique.
timing technique.
Yeah, it's a timing technique. Yeah, there are differences in terms of real time technique and timing technique. but secondary progressions is something different, which has a bit of both, because it has this bearing with natal chart as well, because we take the time and the day exactly corresponding to the natal year with the current year of life, which is 1 day is equal to 1 year concept, which I'll just go back uh, when we talk about the introduction
But
to
that is
secondary
a
progressions.
beautiful concept, and it does
Yes.
find a lot of resonance with our Sanatan Dharma also, because in the Vedic period, it was considered, and is still considered that 1 year, human year, is 1 day of the Devatas. So if you're taking as 1 degree per year, okay, 1 degree in 360 days. So it's a beautiful concept wherein, it's a Dev Tulya year and a Dev Tulya degree to the human year. It makes perfect sense, even if you
Uh-huh.
think that it comes from the Hellenistic point of view.
No, I don't know if I'm not sure if it comes from Hellenistic tradition. I don't want to misstate
Pinpointed.
people. Yeah, I don't want to misquote, because Hellenistic tradition is from 2nd century BC to 6th or 7th century C. But I think secondary progressions first time it found stamp only by 17th or 18th century. But I may be wrong, so I just leave it to the audience to kind of figure out when it actually originated. But as you said, secondary progressions is very interesting because it has this bearing with the natal chart and also the current moment in time. So it directly kind of captures this time and sets footprints in terms of having a kind of huge impact in a human's life.
Yeah,
So yeah,
very beautiful concept. So let's move towards it.
okay. So okay, I just tried to make this small PPT to kind of make things easier. Uh, so as you see here, I just put this understanding life through symbolic stamps of time. So as we are doing astrology, it is not necessarily attributed to secondary progressions, but as long as we are doing astrology, we have a lot of symbolisms which are tied with time, but nothing else. So I just wanted to kind of reinstate that particular point here. So just to say that there is no difference between Eastern and Western astrology.
Right.
So okay. Uh, so as we have already spoke, so secondary progression works under the principle of 1 day is equal to 1 year. So let's say a baby is born today. So this is it's basically the 0th year of baby's life. So
Yeah.
tomorrow will be the first day. That is, the baby will be 1 day old. So when the chart of when the baby was 1 day old will have a direct impact when the baby is actually 1 year old. So that is the concept we are talking about here. So each progressing day after the child's birth has a direct bearing in the corresponding year of a person's life. So 15th day after the baby is born will have a direct impact after the 15th. Yeah, exactly. So 15th year of a person's life. So that's what I mean. So I think I gave a 9th day after the baby is born will have a significant bearing in the 9th year of the native's life. Likewise, 30th day is equal to 30th year of the native's life. So the chart, when a baby is 30 years old, sorry, 30 days old, will be impactful when the native is actually 30 years old. So this is the primary underlying establishment of how secondary progressions work. So symbols of time. So why do we say this as symbols of time? It is probably, as you said, this is not a very new concept, even though it kind of even though we know that it is only from 17th or 18th century, but this idea of 1 day is equal to 1 day is not very new, and it goes back to the time of Vedas. So ideally, average lifespan of a human is at least in 2018. This is something I got from internet, is 79. So we at least need 79 days of charts after the baby is born to have some kind of information about the baby's life up to 79 years. So that's how. So it's at least you need the chart for 3 months after a baby is born.
Yes.
So let's say a person is born for 90 days. So you need to have an ephemeris or Panchang with you for sure for that particular year. And otherwise you'll find it very difficult to kind of understand how the planets were posited at that particular point of time.
So all these parents who are now planning for a baby or having a baby, they should be very careful for the 4 months after the baby is born, so that that is average of 120 days, so they know what kind of will reflect in the baby's life later on.
Yeah, not just the chart, but still, see, I think there is also a lot of symbolic indications. As you do Prashna, you will be even more, vigilant about the symbolisms and omens that is kind of present around us. So whatever happens at that particular point of time, we will have a similar particular point of day during our life as a baby will be kind of reflecting during that corresponding year of life. So let's say if a baby goes on a travel during the 20th day after birth, so similar experience will happen after the 20th year of the native's life. So yeah, there is a lot of symbolic things, and I kind of checked in my case as well. So I had severe cold, and I had a lot of breathing trouble when I was 13 or 14 days old. And when I was 13 or 14 years old, I was in hospital for about 10 days due to a nervous problem. No, so it was a neurological disorder. So I was the moment I learned about secondary progressions, I tried to kind of go back to my mother and ask what happened during that particular point of time. And the interesting thing is that the doctor had asked my father to kind of give a drop of alcohol or something to kind of get rid of the cold that I had. So all these are symbolic representations of day is equal to year concept. So I'm just telling you my own personal example in this. so the conceptual framework. So I think we already spoke about conceptual framework, but let's talk about what is a progression. So progression is nothing but planets movement on a day-to-day basis, and whatever is reflective of that particular day is equal to that particular year. So how do we calculate progressions without having a Panchang or ephemeris in our hand? Let's say if a person is born with sun placed in 15th degree of Sagittarius. So when will the sun move into Capricorn in the progress chart? So sun moves about a degree per day. So sun will take 15 days to move 15 degrees, which is equal to 15 years in terms of speaking of, about the secondary progressions or progress chart. So sun will make its move from Sagittarius to Capricorn after 15 years of the native's life. So that is after the 15th year, that is on the 16th year, sun will make its move into the sign of Capricorn when the native is 15 days old, because sun moves 1 degree per day, which means the progressed sun will move into the sign of Capricorn after the 15th year of the native's life. So yeah, so let me just quickly read out the below paragraph, because I think it is quite interesting in terms of how to assess the planet's position from a progress chart point of view. Progress planets do have a serious impact in our life and life events, especially when they form an aspect with any of the natal planets. A native might have sun in Sagittarius by birth, but the native would wear the Capricorn hat once the sun progresses into Capricorn, despite being born with sun in Sagittarius. Of course, the native. Sorry, that's a mistake here. Of course, the native will express like how a native with the sun in Sagittarius would do. However, the Capricorn sun tendencies could sneak through quite explicitly, either in native's behavior or approach towards daily life. So again, there is a lot of connections with my own chart itself. So I was I was born with sun in 5 degrees of Sagittarius, and my progressed sun moved into the sign of Capricorn, which is the 9th house in my natal chart, and it was around the age of 25. So I would just come back to the example again. So, but what I'm trying to say is it had a significant impact in my life during that particular year, and I always had a worldwide view when it came to my own approach towards life, because sun in Sagittarius is all about being open to a lot of philosophies and spiritual or ancient scriptures. So exploration has always been there. I have not been biased towards any kind of tradition, I've never been biased against any kind of tradition. But what this Saturn's movement into Capricorn in the progress chart has given me is, I've always been open. Still, I'm open, but still, I have a lot of practicality in terms of approaching the scriptures and things. I was not superficial. I'm never superficial. Maybe I was overconfident before 24 or 25. I can surely say that. But now I'm very calculative and very pragmatic in terms of my approach towards philosophy and all those things. So
that's a beautiful one. Now, can I just add a thing here?
Yeah, sure. Please go on and add whenever you want to. Yeah.
Ashwin, you see this 30-year change.
Mhm.
So every 30 year is also a Saturn cycle. If we
Exactly.
can correlate with the Saturn cycle, and it's a beautiful representation of what you did. So we do find a change within ourselves every 30 years or so, because Saturn also completes a whole cycle by that time, and the Sun Saturn, they bring about a great change. So this is 1 year of the Sun is equal to kind of 1 degree of the
Yeah.
Saturn also. So it's a very beautiful concept when we are going through, and Saturn comes back to its natal position in the chart,
Exactly.
making it a very beautiful. Yeah.
So there is one more connection, not just Saturn and Sun, but also Moon, because Moon moves like 2.25 or 2.5. From one sign to another, Moon takes about 2.25 to 2.5 days
Yeah.
to kind of transit from one sign to another, which makes it 30 years cycle to kind of come across the zodiac from progress chart point of view. So 2.25 or 2.5 days in one sign is equal to 2.25 years or 2.5 years in one sign, which directly again comes to 30 years point. So it's especially this, as you pointed out, Sun, Saturn, and Moon will all kind of come back to its natal position from the progress chart point of view in 30 years. So not Sun, but Moon, especially in progress chart point of view, and Saturn in transits. So yeah, that's again very interesting.
Right.
So this 30 has some kind of impact in everyone's life. So okay, so this is the natal chart for a speculative baby that's born on September 16, 2019 at 23:57 hours, Chennai. So we see the planetary positions. Let's concentrate on Moon here. So this is like 19 days and 19 years, which is on October 5th at the same time. So we see that there is no change in the ascendant except for the degrees. So the ascendant has moved about 17 degrees from 4 to 21, so on and so forth. Sun has progressed into Virgo from Leo. You can see that here. Sorry, Leo to Virgo. And Venus and Mercury, both of these planets have shifted from Virgo to Libra. And Jupiter does not make much of a movement. And so let's not concentrate on Jupiter and Saturn, because Jupiter and Saturn do not make a lot of movements, because their speed, relative speed in terms of making a revolution around the sun is very low, and there is no much impact unless and until they station retrograde at some point of time. So, or if Saturn or Jupiter, if they are placed at final degrees during birth, they might actually move into the other sign subsequently at some point of time during the person's lifetime, which might prove to be important, but not necessarily, because they don't move very quickly, and it is unlikely that Saturn or Jupiter might change signs unless and until they are present at the final degrees. So, so as I already said, Saturn is retrograde here, but Saturn is turned direct. So that's a significant moment. So you have to concentrate on the motion of the planets as well, whether they are direct or whether they are retrograde.
I have used this in retrograde motion many a times in my readings, and I've got phenomenal results with progress chart.
Sure.
Retrograde reading.
Yeah, yeah, and Moon here is in. Sagittarius, but moon here is in Pisces. So moon has come one circle here. So moon in Pisces and moon in Sagittarius in progress chart. So moon is a very important planet when it comes to secondary progressions, and sometimes sun is pretty important at some point of time, because sun also surely makes uh, movement from one sign to another at some point of time during a person's life. And Mercury and Venus may move if they're not kind of retrograde, or like Mars also the same case. I think Mars takes about 45 days to move from one sign to another, so it's equivalent to 45 years. But the thing here is that we need to kind of make note of the retrogression of planets, because let's say Venus turns retrograde when the native is 12 years old. It's a huge impact if Venus turns retrograde. So sometimes what I feel is that whatever uh, scenario or a specific position that natal chart keeps us hidden to is explicitly open when you look at the progress chart,
Yes.
because sometimes we may not get an answer for why a person is having Venus retrograde results to some extent, because Venus is direct in the natal chart. But if you look at the progress chart, Venus will be retrograde, and things might be kind of directly relating to what Venus retrograde signifies. So, and another good thing that people have to remember is that if do not worry if you have a debilitated planet in your natal chart, because by progress chart that particular planet may move into another sign, and you will quickly capture the qualities of that particular position of a planet. So even if you will personify whatever is your natal chart, you may have some kind of breather or some kind of good uh, impacts and associations with the current progressed position of a planet. So let's not get demotivated about a planet being debilitated or a planet being in a bad position. So it might quickly change. So that's one good thing that we can take away. So as I already said, important planets to consider. Do you want to add something here?
No, I've been fascinated because these are the very things I see when I'm doing a progress chart, especially for retrograde planet. It works like
Yeah,
nobody's business.
exactly. So important planets to consider is progressed moon, obviously. So moon is very important, and moon's relationship with sun is extremely important, because secondary progressions is all about progressed moon phases, the progressed lunar phases, which is moon's relationship to the progressed sun. So that's something that we'll see in the subsequent slides. And any planet that makes a movement from one sign to another is surely important, and progressed ascendant. So if the rising sign moves, if the ascendant moves from one sign to another, that is also a very significant impact, or a movement that can have a huge amount of impact in our life. So usually Saturn or Jupiter don't make a move into another sign unless a native is born too close to the transition of either of those planets from one sign to the another. So we already kind of spoke about this. Okay, the other major factor is progress lunation cycle. So that's what I spoke about. So progress lunation cycle, moon's movement across the progressed moon's movement across the zodiac, and its relationship with the sun is super important. And planet stationing retrograde is very important. Planet stationing direct. So that is another significant move. You may have a retrograde planet in your natal chart, and quickly it might turn direct. So it's that is another a very important thing. And
Really huge amount of release of energy.
exactly, yeah. So progress planet in configuration with a particular natal angular planet. So let's say sun makes its move into the sign of Pisces, and Mars is placed in Virgo. So 15 degrees of not 15 degrees but 2 degrees of Virgo, and let's say sun is quickly making a move into the sign of Pisces. So sun and Mars would not have had any impact until that time, but suddenly uh, progress sun moving into Pisces will have an opposition with the natal Mars placed in Virgo. So that's a super impacting thing, and suddenly you may have some kind of reactions due to heat, or due to excess of heat, or excess of, maybe even cold, because
You could also
Pisces
end
is
up
in.
joining the military.
People may end up joining military, or people may even turn out to be rebels in some cases. But I don't think Pisces kind of brings rebels, but still, yeah, what you said is surely in the cards. So uh, it's important to kind of note the progressed planet's configuration with the natal position of any other planet. So that's very important. So, okay, progress lunation cycle. The relationship between the sun and the moon is the most important factor to consider. Moon changes its relationship with the sun on a daily basis, which in the context of secondary progressions is yearly basis. So just reiterating the point, 1 day is equal to 1 year. So moon takes about 2.25 to 2.5 days to move from one sign to another, again, which is like 2.25 years to 2.5 years in the case of secondary progressions. So each phase of the moon with respect to sun's position has a significant meaning, that is basically due to which the sun moon relationship and its uh, symbolic meaning to humans life. So there is a lot of uh, you know uh, lot of psychological and astrological factors that we can pull out of the sun moon relationship in the progress chart.
That's chart.
Yeah, uh, so let's quickly move on to progress moon phases. So we are talking about the relationship of moon with the sun. So progressed sun, not just natal sun, but progressed sun. So crescent progressed new moon. Okay, progressed new moon is sun's conjunction with the moon. Um, after some days when the native is born. So progress new moon is nothing but the conjunction of sun and the moon, which is basically 0 to 45 degrees. The angles described is 0 to 45 degrees. If moon is placed anywhere between 0 to 45 degrees from the progressed sun, we say that is progress new moon. So what does new moon signify is, we all know what new moon signifies. The Some of the classical Indian texts do not consider new moon as a very auspicious thing. But progress new moon gives rise to new beginnings, and we are held in dark, but we are kind of doing something behind the scenes to kind of uh, put our head up at some point of time in the near future. So progress new moon is always that kind of a phase where it's like a baby, where we need some kind of nourishment, or we need some kind of guidance in terms of what we are doing. And that's um,
It
we
will
are
get
kind of
us,
sorry.
yeah, it will get us it is on the way of opening. You are grouping in the dark, but you know
Uh-huh.
you're going to do something, and you will be able to move ahead later on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what is crescent phase. So crescent phase is where, like, just relate this with a child, like between 5 to 10 years old. So I mean they're fearless, and they are quick to react and everything. They are super enthusiastic and excited about almost everything that they see. So that's the kind of similar mindset that we have during crescent phase, when moon is separated from the sun somewhere between 45 to 90 degrees. So it's a very crucial period where we are super motivated about many things. The only I won't call it a downside, but we have a lot of options. Our quickness and eagerness or curiosity to kind of get to something that what we want to do will push us to kind of uh, get access to so many things that we are trying to research at that particular point in life. But at some point of time, we are confused as to what we need to pick and what we need to choose, because we have kind of opened ourselves to so many options.
Yeah,
And
we are
yeah,
spreading ourselves a little too thin.
yeah, exactly. So we are all around the place at that particular point of time. So, but the most important factor is enthusiasm that we have during that particular point of time. So next is first quarter phase. First quarter phase is that position where we realize that things are not really okay. We are kind of bombarded with a lot of options, but we have confusions and ambiguity in terms of choosing what we really need. So it's making a shift. So 90 degrees is a square, and it's a kendra, it's a pivot that we have to take in our life in terms of choosing what we need and what we don't need. So basically, it's a turning point that we take
A
from the.
crossroad basically where you have to decide where you want to head on.
Exactly. So it might not necessarily be the way that we started during the progress new moon phase. It could be entirely something different, but still it's for good, because it's a decision, conscious decision that we make during that particular point of time. So whether it is a conscious decision, whether it is a good decision, it depends upon progress moon's connection with other planets as well. Let's say progress moon gets into a conjunction with natal Saturn during the first quarter phase. So that's an entirely different thing. So we have a lot of depressions and all those choices and options that we exposed ourselves to kind of turn out. It might turn out to be really hectic, and it might turn out to be depressing for us because of our inability to kind of make decisions at the right point of time. So so yeah, so a lot of things depend upon the natal chart as well. So make sure that you kind of analyze things on a
Complete,
holistic view. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
a complete composite analysis.
sure. Gibbous phase is 135 to 180 degrees of moon separation from sun. So so this is that particular phase where we are far more matured after our decision making during the first quarter phase. When yeah, so it signifies that we have made an important turning point, or we have changed our path from what we were during the progress new moon, and we realize that success is very near and we are quickly in the path to attain success. So it is that particular period where we grow beautifully without much of hindrances, because that's one point where moon is super ecstatic about the complete light that it is going to attain from sun. Okay, so
Yes.
moon knows that it's going to have full light from the sun when it is going to be in opposition. So so that is the enthusiasm and energy with which we function during the gibbous phase, but with a lot more maturity than what it was in crescent phase. So let's not confuse between crescent phase and gibbous phase,
No,
because
one of the
both.
ways it are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like the example that I shared before. I was overconfident before 25, but calculative when I was after 25. So maybe I was in gibbous phase. I'm not very sure about it, but still, so it relates to something. You are pragmatically energetic and enthusiastic and confident, and you know where you are actually headed to. So that's the good news about gibbous phase. So next is progressed full moon. That's the culmination, or the greatest point where we reap our rewards and we reach that highest potential of our own self in terms of performing whatever we set out to do. So whatever
Happy
we
times.
started. Sorry.
Can I just say in one, two words, happy times?
No, you can say as long as you want.
No, no, I'm just saying, can we say it as happy times?
Yeah, happy times, successful times, and the kind of um, it's a very matured way of expressing our happiness, because we know the path that we came uh, along over the 15 years of time, because the time that's taken from progress new moon to full moon is 15 years, because amavasya to purnima is 15
Yes.
days, which is equal to 15 years. So we know the path that we traveled for the past 15 years. We know what kind of troubles that we have undergone, and we know what kind of decisions that we made, and we also know what kind of influences or impacts that all those phases had in our lives. So we are not super energetic or ecstatic about what we achieved, but we know that we have to sustain or reap rewards for quite long time, and even though our head is held high, we don't kind of take success to our head. So that's the maturity that progressed full moon gives. But surely it is that kind of achievement that we have during the progressed full moon period. So so the next is disseminating phase, which is the second trine. So that is the waning trine. So when when the moon is actually starting to go dark again. So this is that particular phase where we are towards the saturation point, and so we know that we have done enough, but we just want to maintain whatever we have. And all this time we would have had some kind of help from someone, but we were kind of individualistic in our decision making, and individualistic in lot many other manners that we crossed these many years in life. But at this point of time, suddenly we feel like we have to trust others as well who are along with us, and we are open to kind of share whatever we have with others in terms of our journey of life or whatever it may be. So we are more comfortable in trusting others, and we are even more comfortable in terms of judging who can do the job for us, or who probably cannot do the job for us. That is the maturity level that we attain during the disseminating phase. And disseminating is directly related to spreading, so we disperse the energy and decentralize everything to others, and make it a team job instead of what was an individualistic.
Concentration. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, yeah. So but still there is saturation and there is maturity during the dissemination phase, which kind of sets off or slightly diminishes during the last quarter moon phase, because moon is all set to kind of go dark. And at this point, we will have enough to kind of enough resources to kind of build things together, and just maintain what we have. But still we kind of realize that what we are doing is kind of coming to a close, and it might not be lifelong affair, or it might not be a long term thing that we can actually sustain or stick to. So that is the kind of maturity we have during the last quarter moon phase. And going into balsamic phase, it is it's again going dark. Let's say moon is placed in 12th house from the sun or something like that. So that's a very it's not a cheerful thing. We are kind of depressed, and
Because
we
we're
are
not knowing where to start again, because we've all of a sudden we are again have to go back to level one and start. So that is why people have these ups and downs in life, because the moon is moving from the progressed moon to the balsamic moon in a circle. That's a very beautiful way to describe things.
I think you just said it. So I don't think anything more that I have to say now. But balsamic phase is that particular kind of phase where we are we feel the kind of failure. I don't want to necessarily say the failure, but the the tightening the noose by nature is something that we'll
It could
feel during
also
that
be about
phase.
culmination. Why failures? Like, you feel that you have a higher calling or you have to move on to a new thing.
Yeah,
And that,
basically it's moving on to something else. Yeah, exactly. So it's that's what I mean to say. It's not necessarily a failure, but it is a realization point that where you need to actually move on to
you have
something.
grown out of that. You've grown out of that particular area of life.
Yeah. So but balsamic phase is it's essentially a constructive phase. Not very. It's not an easier thing to go through. It's very difficult. And yeah. So that's there. So these are the progress moon phases. So other important thing that I want to say is that moon's movement is very important, because moon is our emotional mind, and moon signifies our psychological apparatus. So and moon signifies the mental growth of a person. So moon's movement is directly symbolic with, sorry, the progress moon's movement or transition from one sign to another sign is a direct symbolic representation of the maturity of a person from 2.5 years old to 5 years old to 7.5 years old to 10 years and 12.5 to 15 and so on. So the mind matures every 2.5 years, which is basically because of the progressed moon. So let's say a person is born with the moon in Leo, so it's entirely different. So the person will be having his moon in Scorpio when he is 7.5 years old, and from 10 and until 10 moon will be in Scorpio. So it's a different territory. So and suddenly after 15 years from Scorpio, moon will be placed in Taurus, where moon will be exalted. So moon will be exalted when the native is 22. So if he's born with natal moon in Leo, so I mean, the differences or the qualities that moon acquires when it is placed in each sign is the experience that we have in our own self from an emotional or psychological point of view. So that's just something that I wanted to emphasize on. So
It's a very
concentrate
beautiful
on the.
concept. You see, we as time goes, we also keep changing. Our thought processes do not remain the same with time. So that can be very much given this progressed moon phases. They can be very much held for being that kind of an attribute that they give to the being. That you are maturing, so the you can feel all the emotions because the moon is also progressing, and so all the zodiac, your mind need not be stuck in one zodiac. Yes, that primary vibration is there with you forever, but it will keep moving over the zodiac as you this is a very beautiful concept that you put forward here, Ashwin.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would just stress everyone to kind of make note of their progressed moon. So and kind of be open to that particular nature. So let's say if that moon is in Capricorn or something, so it's entirely different from a moon in Sagittarius, and it gives a lot of practicality, pragmatism with a little bit of you know um, traditional touch and an emotional attachment towards our own traditions. So but Aquarius is entirely different, so suddenly we will move away from our own customary and traditional stuff, and we'll be rebellious, and we'll be kind
We'll
of
be
looking.
exploring stuff also. We'll be exploring stuff like Aquarius does.
Exactly. So the the changes in moon's position will have an impact in your emotional stability and emotional state or something like that, whatever it
And
is.
for those people who have small children, for them, it's so much more easy for them to map this out because they can see the progress of the moon, and they can see how the child is vibrating to the energies of a particular sign every 2.5 years. It's very easy for them to do that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very good point. So I think I just wanted to share two example charts that I prepared with events. This is Dr. Subramanian Swami's chart, who is one of the leading politicians, and this does not say anything about my political view or something like that. It is just the chart that I like in terms of astrology. So okay, so Dr. Swami has Leo rising with Sun and Mercury in Leo.
Right.
So you can see the rest of the chart. Moon is in Moon and Venus in Virgo, Rahu in Libra, Mars exalted in Capricorn, Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, Saturn retrograde and debilitated in Aries along with Ketu. So it's a very interesting chart in many ways, which explicitly appears to be difficult. It is difficult. It has been difficult, and but it has kind of given the
And
ability to native strength as well. So let's look at. I just want to share a little bit of story with regards to Dr. Swami's life. It was 1975 to 77. It is a very interesting and very difficult and also an important period in independent India's history or politics, which is Mrs. Indira Gandhi's prime ministership when she declared state of emergency for the entire nation from 1975 to 77, when citizens of India were deprived of their normal human rights as well in this country. So that is a very difficult period for everyone. And what is the role that Dr. Swami had to play at that particular point of time is what is kind of directly impacting with his progress chart. What Dr. Swami did is he came back from US to India. He was offered a professorship in IIT New Delhi, and he was expelled, or he was dismissed as a professor of IIT New Delhi by Dr. Indira Gandhi because of some economic decision or economic comment that he made, which is that he stated that India is moving in the path of socialism adopted by Russia. Instead, India should be more open in terms of open and liberal in terms of economic policies and so on, which kind of irritated Mrs. Indira Gandhi, due to which I think he was removed from that professorship in IIT New Delhi. And after that, he again, a state of emergency was declared in India, and everyone who were considered to be rebellious against this state of emergency were arrested. So many people were arrested over a period of 1.5 years to 2 years. And Dr. Swami was also one of those people who had to be arrested, but he kind of managed to make an escape from India to Colombo and Sri Lanka, and then from there to USA, and he propagated the then current political situation in India, in USA, and he started collecting funds, and he sent to India in terms of where people are reeling and all those, and he wanted to kind of single-handedly take on the emergency situation in India. And suddenly what happened is, after some time, he just came back to India. I think in 76 or 77, he came back to India in a flight that is actually going from Boston to Bangkok or something, and which had to transit from New Delhi to Bangkok. So he kind of took the opportunity, and he got down in the New Delhi airport, and then he kind of came back to his house in disguise of a Sardarji who has come there to repair, because the police were patrolling his house because there is a warrant against Dr. Swami. So he went into his own house in disguise of a Sardarji who just came there to repair a TV or something, and he stayed there, stayed inside the house for a week, and then after a week he just came out of the house. Coming out of all the disguise, and he came out as Subramanian Swami, and he went in his car, and people were surprised and shocked. The police were shocked to see that Dr. Swami is actually here, and he went to Parliament in his car, and everyone there patrolling the Parliament were completely shell-shocked to see Dr. Subramanian Swami here. And he went inside the Parliament. I don't remember the name who was actually giving a speech at that particular point of time, but Swami kind of stood there and said that along with the dead list of people also include the name of democracy. So, and after saying that, he kind of came out the Parliament, and he just again went back to America, and he kind of he went back to America, and due to various other reasons, Mrs. Indira Gandhi had to call off the emergency situation in India, after which Dr. Swami came to India as a free person, and also he was made some kind of he had some kind of membership, or he was MP or something from Janata Party. Yeah, so that's all this happened between 1976 and 77, and if you see, for the 2 years you had progressed moon of Dr. Swami in Capricorn along with Mars. So sixth house from the natal point of view is nothing but
oppositions, fights, litigations.
Yeah, so sixth house, so litigations and everything. Moon, progressed moon is conjunct the natal Mars, which is the sixth house. On the other hand, what does Swami's freedom or victory of that particular situation signify? Suddenly ascendant has progressed, and you find Mars and moon in the fifth house, which is essentially a Chandra Mangala yoga. Fifth house is also a house of ranks and position. So he was offered some kind of role in the Parliament by Janata Party and all those, but sixth house is litigations, as you said. Police is searching for him.
Also your governmental connections. It is also a celebrityhood. It's when you come into prominence also.
Yeah, exactly. But there is one more reason why he had to face so much of trouble and he had to remain hidden, is because sun is in debilitation and is also squaring the progressed moon. So there are some important. So this is basically the the phase between the gibbous phase and the last quarter phase. So
yeah.
So it's a phase where he made some important decisions, and especially when he had a warrant against him, traveling to India, coming in disguise into his own house, staying there for a week. I mean, basically fooling everyone around and going to Parliament, making a strong statement, leaving from there when everyone is there, and again going back to America is not something that a normal man could do.
Phase that sorry for disrupting you here, Ashwin,
No
but
problem, no problem.
exactly the phase as you said when you were doing the phases of moon, where he took a conscious decision. It was on a
Yeah,
he was on a crossroad and he decided what he had to do. So he took a conscious decision when they're on squares. It may be a turbulent time, but you take a conscious decision at 90 degrees what I have to do, and you move that way with a lot of confidence. And we
brilliant.
see that he's done that already. Yeah, so it's a beautiful way of showing it.
Yeah, and why does he become a rebel against the government? Then Mrs. Indira Gandhi's government, Sun is debilitated, opposing Saturn, which is also debilitated, and Moon is lying in between, so squaring both Saturn and Sun. So there is a lot of rebellious energy. Not just Moon, but also Mars is there. So it's a very tight combination, which puts the native in such a position where he had to be a rebel, and he was Mrs. Gandhi was super troubled by Swami's actions, and so on. So it's a very interesting political scenario which Mr. Subramanian Swami had got into himself. So, and I think the progress chart is super descriptive of it. So moving on. So did you want to add something to this chart?
No, I was just looking at it from the way you said, and then just one small point, if you let me, is that everything is happening on a Rahu-Ketu axis.
Yeah.
Looking at a progress chart, it's all happening on the Rahu-Ketu axis, the 2-8, which is your moral ethics, changing points in your life, the sudden turnarounds, your legacies, all that is so much affected, at that age when you're looking at the progress chart. So
yeah.
that is in itself a tumultuous phase where you are going to bring about change. There will be a pivotal with the progressed moon, with this Rahu Ketu axis. Everything is just pointing to that single direction, change for you along the way. And you are going to question people's ethics. You're going to question, because Sun is debilitated, so you're going to question people's ethics. It's with Venus, so Venus is strong there. Morals are high.
Yeah, and basically questioning government. So that's what he did. So it's very, the reason why I took this chart is because it depicts the scenario very well.
Perfectly.
So that's the thing. So this is the chart of one of the leading astrologers who has contributed a lot to the revival of the traditional astrology in the West. So Demetra George, she just published a book on ancient Hellenistic astrology, and she just published part 1, and everyone is eagerly looking forward to part 2, and her contributions to astrology is monumental. So her chart is also one of the most important charts, and her astrological journey is not private, it is public. It's there in one of those podcasts. If you want, I can probably share the link. So the reason why I took this chart is she published Asteroid Goddesses book in the year 1986. I think she was born in 1946, and she published Asteroid Goddesses book in the year 1986. I think exactly at the age of 40 or 41. So what made it very significant in terms of making her publish a book at that particular point of time and not doing so before? And this book basically put her in the limelight in terms of a practicing astrologer or something like that. From then on, she never looked back. So that's what it is. So
you see,
so
it's again moving down to the second house. Yeah, it's beautiful. The lovely.
yeah, ascendant has moved into the second house. Sun, Mercury retrograde has moved into the second house, and Mercury is suddenly direct. And Mercury and Jupiter are very, very important when it comes to publishing. Jupiter is the natural lord of publishing, and Mercury is all about bringing about the thoughts and writing and getting ready to publish something. So when Mercury is retrograde, so it signifies that when Mercury was retrograde, she was all set and ready to kind of do everything. And I think this is almost a year after Mercury turned direct, which is a day after Mercury turned direct. So Mercury is not retrograde anymore. and Mercury is not placed with Saturn anymore. So there is no malefic connection as it is, because
No,
both Mars.
instead of malefic connection, we can say that there are no restrictions on his
Yes,
on her, writing abilities or publishing abilities, because the
exactly.
limitations have been withdrawn by.
Yeah, exactly. So Sun is super strong, which indicates that she's going to be famous in public, and Mercury has moved into Leo, which is again a very important scenario. And we also see that Jupiter is here in
Third,
Libra.
yes.
Yeah, Jupiter is in Libra, and Venus is nicely receiving Jupiter in her own territory, which is the natural lord of. I mean, Jupiter is the natural lord of publishing, and we see that there is a sign-based sextile relationship between the lord of publishing and the lord of writing or intelligence or whatever it may be. But here there is a retrograde relationship which is entirely different. So this is probably that particular chart where she was under construction because of retrogression, and Virgo is all about perfection. So
Mm.
here it is all set that she's making it public, and she's gone. And most interesting thing here is that she published it like almost 1.5 days or so after the moon has uh,
Mm.
moon has moved into this, just not even one day after moon has moved into its sign of debilitation.
Yes.
So imagine what kind of impact that Mercury's direct motion and movement of ascendant and sun has had in the natives, uh, uh, I mean her potential to be in limelight. So
So if you don't mind, I'll just also add in a few things about.
nah, I don't mind at all. So
So you see, it's like the fifth house of the natural zodiac is related to publishing. So
sure.
you see, when the progress chart moves into the fifth house of the natural zodiac, seventh house of the natural zodiac gives you a platform. Jupiter is in the seventh house of the natural zodiac. Third house is also relating to your writings and your publishings. So Jupiter is sitting there. It's a very and Jupiter is the lord of the fifth house in this case in the progress chart. So it makes it a very potent decision to be able to write it, publish it at that moment, to gain the maximum impact possible.
Exactly, and I would usually take ninth house and Sagittarius as publishing, the house of publishing, but still I can understand why you say fifth house. So it's I think it's
Bhavat Bhavam concept also you can say whatever.
yeah, for sure.
And just to ask a question, does that book contain a lot of diagrams, a lot of pictures or something like that?
No, I have not read Ashtirad Goddesses because I've still not made my way into reading Ashtirads. But I know that I know her, chronology in terms of what she has done in her life as an astrologer. So this
So I
book
was asking
basically,
because Jupiter was in Chitra Nakshatra. So it
no,
was.
it has to be. I mean, diagrams has to be because she has done a lot of work with Greek deities and so on. So there must be some kind of depiction with goddess. If goddesses are there, deities will be there, and images will be there. So that's an
So
integral part of.
that means it makes a very beautiful impact. Pictorially, this book makes a very strong impact also.
Yeah, sure. I think that this is the final example. Yeah, this is it. So if maybe like I can tell one more thing, like, which is um uh I sun I have sun in fifth degree of Sagittarius, and sun moved into Capricorn when I was 25, uh, 25 or 30. Yeah, 30. But Mercury was retrograde. Uh,
No, you
Mercury
should
was
have moved.
direct, but Mercury suddenly turned retrograde when I was 26 or something
You
in
should have. Sun
Capricorn.
should have moved into Capricorn for you when you were 25 or 26, because 5 degrees we take it. Sun travels.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the period. So when I was 25 or so. So the thing is that Mercury, uh, Mercury also was direct, and suddenly it turned retrograde during the same time with 1 or 2 days gap. So around 25 to 27, which was which was a very important period in my life, because Sun moved into Capricorn and Mercury was stationing retrograde, and my father had passed away exactly during that particular point of time, which is my natal ninth house. So Mercury's retrogression was a very key factor, and also Sun's movement into ninth house gives some kind of karaka dosha or something like that. And it's a, I mean, losing a parent is a very important or a significant event in life. So I think I was just surprised by how secondary progressions had to work at that particular point of time. So yeah, I mean, it's just the the nature of retrograde planets and what they have to offer, and how I was derailed in my life for the next 3 or 4 years was symbolic of retrograde Mercury. So I think it's very important that people should know what a retrograde planet will signify.
I've been
So
doing that. I've been doing progressions with. I've been repetitive, and because it's not just an Hellenistic concept. It is 1 day equal to 1 year equal to
it's
1 day of the
universal.
Devatas. It's very beautifully correlated if you can correlate. So
I think that's pretty much what I have at this point of time. So maybe I can come up with some other example charts in next video or something like that,
this
if the audience need more. So yeah, that's
no, but this has been so beautiful, and even with you've given a beautiful example of the retrograde Mercury also, how it works, and it has been a very intense kind of a session where we have forgotten the time also. Very beautiful
yeah.
mixing of not mixing. It's coming to a place where we see. In Hindi, we would use the word sangam, there is the word where it blends so beautifully, where both the systems blend so beautifully and point at the same direction.
And I've made some extensive research in using secondary progress charts with Vimshottari Dasha. So, that is something that
We can
I've
take it
worked for
next.
almost. Yeah,
Yeah, we
sure.
can take it up next. We can take it up.
So, exactly, yeah, I've been working on it for almost 1.5 years or even more. So it's another interesting concept to note, uh, how uh, how a specific planet whose dasha is running, or how a specific planet in progress chart has an impact against what is not uh, explicitly visible in the natal chart. So let's say, uh, what if Saturn is in the 10th house of your natal chart in Capricorn, and suddenly you will find Saturn in the 12th house of Capricorn in progress chart. So it's entirely different. It's different ball games. So
Yeah, so we're
that's
going
what we will
to the
explore
next time.
probably in the
Yes,
next
that
video.
is the next thing we want to take, and it was not fun. It was intense, and it was so beautiful that you cannot put it just as fun. It was beautiful, which needs to be explored in detail by us, because Ashwin has been able to talk on this without a full stop for more than 1 hour, and that shows the
Yeah,
in-depth knowledge that he has on this subject.
and I think I've never been so nonstop in any of my, you know. So it's a different thing that I'm almost arguing against myself. So
So it's called being passionate about a subject. So
sure.
we'll meet again on Vimshotri Dasha and secondary progressions next time. Till we meet
Thank
again,
you.
have a good time. Bye,
Thanks.
Ashwin. See you.